Apple in the news now, with CNBC headlining that Apple will be launching its Pay Later service. Hi everyone, I'm Zach with the Money Channel, and I think it's best that we dive into it. As an overview, Apple introduced a new feature called Apple Pay Later on Tuesday, which will allow users to split their purchases into 4 payments over 6 weeks with no interest or fees. The service will be available to individuals for in-app and online purchases made through merchants that accept Apple Pay. Users will be able to manage, track, and repay their loans with their Apple Wallet. The MasterCard installments program will enable Pay Later, meaning that merchants who already accept Apple Pay will not have to make any changes. Apple will invite select individuals to access a pre-release version of Apple Pay Later on Tuesday, with plans to expand access to all eligible users in the coming months. Affirm, which also offers buy now pay later software, closed down 7% on the news. An Affirm spokesperson commented, "More transparent and flexible payment options that can display credit cards are good for consumers, especially when they have no late or hidden fees." With all of that said, let's have a look at how the public is reacting to this. Big news, especially for Affirm, which is down 9% on the day. It'll be interesting to see how bad it actually gets for them and the other buy now pay later fintechs. Apple has still never released a credit card outside of the US, so I doubt this product will be available internationally anytime soon, which would still leave a very large market for these other companies to play in: Canada, the UK, EU, Australia, Asia, etc. Affirm was already doomed a long time ago. The news about Apple releasing the service was like a year or so ago. The fact that Apple decided to start its own card and venture into the finance sector shows that they are just collecting information about purchase habits and customer profiles for all of these years. I think for Apple, this is just the beginning, and pretty much every fintech out there should be worried. Also, buy now pay later companies are deep in debt, and with the worst economy, only going to get worse. But for some reason, I think the pay later scheme may not be available for all Apple users, so the risk there may be limited. Apple is too big now. As an Apple shareholder, I think it may be time for the government to intervene before we all start living in a world ruled by Apple. Maybe it's already too late. I feel like they did this because they're just sitting on so much cash they don't know what to do with it, might as well use it to finance additional purchases. That being said, breaking up a payment into 4 chunks over 6 weeks doesn't seem like it's that helpful. It's more like splitting a big purchase over 4 paychecks. Day 0 is the first paycheck, week 2, week 4, week 6, 4th paycheck. Helps people who don't have a credit card or don't want to dip into savings for big purchases. Helps people who enjoy living check to check. 6 weeks is a very short period of time to think that borrowing is necessary. I think there's a niche amount of purchases that this can help without it being a bad idea. I make good money, have a solid savings, 401k, yada yada, but I recently used Affirm to split a fabricated bumper purchase for my off-road rig, $1,200 over 4 paychecks. It was 0% interest, I get my bumper, and I don't have to fork more money at once. I had the money, but now they have to not have the money for a while. Didn't cost me a dime, why wouldn't I? Sounds like a win for MasterCard. I will now be financing everyday goods like apples and sandwiches. Charge it to the game, Apple. How does Apple expect to make money with non-zero interest rates? Because they know most people who use pay later services are crap with money and most likely to be late on payments. I thought merchants have to pay a fee. How do people keep track of this stuff when there are so many buy now pay later providers out there? That's correct, most buy now pay later providers actually don't want late fees. They can't legally collect them, and the only true recourse they have is banning people who don't pay from using the platform. Does it affect the user's credit? I don't think so, since their competitor Affirm does not perform a hard inquiry. Someone on the fence about buying something because of the high price tag may be more enticed to buy it if payments are split, easier to budget, and less of an immediate hit to the bank account. Apple has like 40 to 60% profit margins on all of their products. Then there are all the post-product sales services like iCloud and Apple TV. Worst case is they repossess the product, refurbish, and resell it. My only concern is these types of buy now pay later services have a very high default rate. It could be a short-sighted play to get unit sales up that will impact the company down the road. Finance companies don't repossess a laptop or a TV, they just sell the debt to the collectors who take you to court. My understanding via my brother-in-law who works at Zip is merchants pay a subscription to the pay later company. In turn, customers are more likely to make a purchase and the merchant gets paid in full immediately. Payment recovery is now the responsibility of the pay later. There may be no interest or upfront fees, but there are late fees for missed payments. Merchants don't pay an extra fee for Apple Pay Later. To them, it's just a Master credit card purchase and there are no late fees. Surprise government has not tried to stop this yet. They will get their cut, don't worry. Apple isn't charging fees or interest, it's just a complimentary service. Why would the government stop it? It's only a matter of time. There's a reason why credit cards are regulated. Buy now, pay later is a loophole around them. Apple Pay Later is enabled through the MasterCard installments program, so merchants that accept accept Apple Pay do not need to do anything to implement Apple Pay Later for their customers. When a merchant accepts Apple Pay Later will be an option for their customers during checkout online and in apps on iPhone and iPad. Goldman Sachs is the issuer of the MasterCard payment credential used to complete Apple Pay Later purchases. Sounds like it's all done by MasterCard and Goldman, which are already regulated. Good catch. Like half these comments expects Apple is not aware and ahead of the challenges of a launch. As soon as I read the headline, my first thought was, when does Apple get stopped? Their ecosystem is soon going to be every service on the web. Doubt the regulator is going to do anything. Apple is America's baby. They are a remarkably pro-consumer company. I don't think we're suffering. Yeah, their stance on right to repair really took the side of the consumer. Next up, Apple iPhones will cost $2,000, but don't you worry, you can pay later. Huge news. Don't underestimate how many people use microfinancing services. Great move by Apple. It will really pay off. Yeah, it's a massive issue encouraging people even more to live above their means. These services are designed in a way that puts people in debt. If you can't afford that phone, you shouldn't buy it. If you need to save up, why would you choose to pay interest and fees just to get the phone a bit sooner? Just save up for it. Or don't get it because you literally cannot afford it. These services are awful. This country is full of people who try to live above their means, can't afford the light bill, but everyone's for iPhones, complaining and whining about grocery prices while holding their Louis Vuitton and iPhone while their kid plays on his iPad. It's terribly sad that these companies know the debt rates yet still do this for entirely greedy reasons. This sounds a lot like the avocado toast narrative. It's not Apple's job to educate people. This is a tool that can be used effectively by some and will be used ineffectively by others, same as any other tool. Duh, but that's not what I'm saying. This is blatantly taking advantage of people. They know the statistics, they know how this business model works, and it is absolutely predatory behavior. Fricking predators charging their super crazy 0% interest. Please do some research into this business model statistics and how it works. They're all predatory. There's no interest, no late fee. Things are to do exactly what they've done to you. Misinform and manipulate. So how does it work then? Please elaborate. Sure thing. For one, it's literally a buy now pay later scheme at its most basic form. They're making money from merchant fees, etc. If you look into it, you will quickly realize these are not only morally corrupt but highly damaging to our economy. No interest isn't a good thing in this context because it's just a trick to get people to join, knowing damn well they're still making money even if you pay your bills. Which, statistically speaking, is a damn epidemic of people overspending or mismanaging these BNPL schemes. While Apple isn't responsible for people, they absolutely should make sure to have a moral business model. As for the interest thing, it just means they're making bank off merchant fees, which is exactly how this works. And they don't care about whether or not you overspend because that's actually better for them in the long run. But uninformed people think it's better because there's no interest. It's manipulation. Because that's how these schemes work. There's so much to it. Seriously. Just take 5 minutes of your time to look into how Apple's buy now pay later scheme makes them money. Compare that to the typical business model of these schemes and the effects they've already had. Here's just a few unbiased statistics. As of 2021, 60% of consumers have reported using a buy now pay later services. Out of those consumers, 46% are still making payments. The average debt owed by consumers using a buy now pay later service is $883. The average user finances about 4 items at a time. Clothing, electronics and furniture were the top 3 items financed using BNPL services during the COVID-19 pandemic, accounting for 47%, 44% and 32% of all finance purchases respectively. 56% of consumers who have used buy now pay later services say they prefer them to credit cards mainly because they're easier to pay off and offer more flexibility. 38% of BNPL users say that these services will eventually replace their credit cards. 57% of BNPL consumers reported regretting their purchase because it was too expensive. More than half of surveyed BNPL users have reported falling behind on payments. It is estimated that by 2027, consumer spending using BNPL services will reach $437 billion globally, a 290% increase from 2022. I'm not disagreeing with you, I'm just trying to understand why it's more predatory than, say, a credit card purchase that takes on interest. Is it because the consumer is enticed to make a purchase that they normally wouldn't have done so? Apple and no other business have an obligation to act morally unless it affects profits. That is why government regulations are so important. Businesses are there to make money. Don't blame Apple. Blame our bought and paid for morally corrupt government. Oh wow, you actually don't think they're making any money off this because they say no interest? Delusional. Absolutely delusional. Let me guess you're one of those types who whine about the cost of gas or groceries while using your iPhone. They're making a lot of money. And since you clearly don't know how this works, they're banking on people defaulting. That's how this business model works. There's an entire market for defaulting debts and selling to collectors. You've got no idea. I think it's a great idea. Merchants get more business, Apple Pay gets a new selling point, the consumer gets 0% interest loan. Of course, if the consumer was savvy, they'd simply get a 0% interest credit card with even better terms, but unfortunately I suspect the target market for this financial product is not sophisticated customers. The target market for this is my ex, who will use this to buy a new wardrobe, a new phone, and run up 20 different bar tabs before defaulting on everything including her rent.